वेरी गुड आफ्टरनून दोस्तों और अभिवादन आप सभी को। जैसा कि हमने अब आपसे वादा किया था, आज हम बात करेंगे बीबीसी के बारे में, ब्रिटिश ब्रॉडकास्टिंग कॉरपोरेशन, जहां अक्सर आप भारत के बारे में नकारात्मक खबरें सुनते ही रहते होंगे। अगर मैं ब्रीफली आपको इसका थोड़ा सा बैकग्राउंड दे दूं और जल्दी से, सो दैट कि देन वी गो टू आवर एक्सपर्ट अजय सिंह जी टू टॉक मोर अबाउट इट। बट टू टेल यू briefly, it is funded, it's called public funded organization. It is funded in a way that basically it is paid by the general public in terms of they pay for the television license, and that is how it works. So basically they are funded by that kind of license fee, which is paid by the UK citizens. It's not exactly paid by the government as such. So this is how it works. That's why it's called public funded. And but despite this, the leaning of BBC has usually been little left liberal kind of a,
Yes.
it has always been. Even if you go back to the war that took place with Falkland, like let's say in 80s, even there they were considered too even-handed. So the Margaret Thatcher was actually quite harsh on them for being too liberal. But if you look at even other how should I say, armed kind of conflicts that are going elsewhere, Scotland, Ireland, you will find them little less hostile on there, compared to when it comes to, let's say, to India, especially to India, because you'll see the armed conflicts going on even in Pakistan, let's say Baluchistan or Waziristan, wherever. They will never call it a separatist kind of a movement. They always call it gunmen. So much so that even 26/11, when Mumbai was happening, BBC never called them terrorists. They always call them gunmen. So this is how they have been narrated. The narrative has been like that, especially when it came to India. But I'll hand it over to Ajay, because Ajay Bhai will take you further into details. Ajay Bhai, over to you, and welcome to the channel.
Radhe Radhe, and thank
Radhe
you so
Radhe.
much, Maheshji. Uh, basically, when we talk about media, there are 2 points. So, it is always called the fourth pillar of any sovereign democratic setup. But
Yeah.
this fourth pillar has an kind of origin which was basically based about some revolting ideologies. So, if we go back
Mhm.
into the history and we talk about that earliest origins of the communist or leftist ideology, so
Mhm.
most of the time the kind of pamphlets or newspapers they were distributed. So what would happen is that they would actually they were trying to create a kind of class consciousness among the labor class, right?
Mhm.
So right from those days and from the advent of independent journalism and advent of radio, and then first world war, second world war, in between first world war and second world war there was a streak of independent journalists which originated. Now what happened that during that streak some ultra fascist, ultra nationalists, and some ultra leftist organizations and setups originated. Now, that concept of class consciousness, which was being advocated so fervently, suddenly it started taking over the media. And over a period of time, almost half of the world's media was taken over by this leftist ideology. So problem started from there. Now, what I mean by the class consciousness is that communism mentality or leftist neoliberal mentality, they have always tried to create a kind of stratifications in our society basis the kind of classes, subclasses, hierarchical structures we have in our society, and they would institutionalize the problems of those hierarchies, those classes, those social masses and classes, and then they will try to project them like subjugated, downtrodden, marginalized masses, and they will try to uh, create a kind of revolutionary, revolting ideologies around them, and then they will push it like some mass ideology, some class ideology. So that was the idea which actually revolted and what I can say that pole vaulted into what we have in the name of media today, and most of them are with the leftist leanings and neoliberal leanings. And to be very sad, they never publish a truth. What they publish is that is a kind of ideological leaning laced with some half-baked truths, and then pushing it further to the masses to create a kind of uh, dialogue or kind of social narrative, and then impacting the policies of a particular particular political arena, geography, or what you can say, uh, government setup.
Mhm.
Now, before we just jump into the BBC, this
Hmm.
entire structure, it functions based on the kind of one a theory of conflict, social conflict.
Hmm.
And how it function is that suppose I am a person and I want to create a kind of narrative. So what I'll do is
Hmm.
that I have only two options. One, I use media,
Hmm.
or two, I get some political ownership of a part of a setup, and I own the media. Now, how it happens that first of all, a person, suppose a person A, would create a kind of conflict,
Hmm.
right? Now, that conflict will challenge the existing ethos and eidos. Ethos means what we generally believe in. Eidos means what our spiritual practices are, right?
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
once we create those ethos and eidos, so we start believing in them. And someone like me comes and says that, oh, this is wrong. This is simply a pagan structure, or this is
Hmm.
simply an heuristic belief. So
Hmm.
I challenge them. So what happened is that couple of people pay attention to me, and out of that chances are that a particular percentage will align with me, because they found a frame of reference to vent out whatever ideologically was going on in their head, right? So what I did,
Hmm.
I created a conflict. Now conflict would draw the attention. Now once
Hmm.
that attention comes to me, I would just try to create more and more conflict. I will formulate it. So what will happen, it will become a multiplication of thought, that 100 people influenced by me would transmit my ideology to 1000 more, 1000 more, and then accordingly more and more attention comes to my narrative. Now what happen is that basis that once I have that attention, now attention would always bring me the influence, right? This is how any political catalyst will function. Once the attention brings me the influence, I will just try to maximize it, multiply it, and then exactly at a point where I feel like that I have a substantial influence, I will just pivot it to a part of the power, social setup, or political setup, or administrative setup. So that is a kind of template which has been always been transcribed, prescribed by all the political and these class consciousness thinkers, and that is how they drove the media, and till now they are driving the media through ownership, through political setups, and then, as some Jay is saying, that perception is the reality. So that perception is created by creating the conflict. Conflict brings the influence, influence brings the power, and power is what the ultimate agenda is for any leftist or near leftist or neoliberal champion of this so-called class consciousness, which directly comes from that earlier leftist and communist mentality. Now second is all the students of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engel,
Hmm.
they created a kind of ecosystem with a single belief that if you want to destroy a society, the first and foremost thing you will have to apply is to destroy its basic institutions. And that is exactly what the media is doing right now. Most of them, I'm not saying everybody of them, but most of them are doing this, right? And that is exactly how they're peddling it. Because what they say what those papers of those class conscious thinkers say, that once you destroy the nuclear family concept, once you destroy the institution of marriage, society becomes in a disarray. A disarray mass of people is easy to control, and that's what they need
Yeah.
to ensure that that particular socialist communist agenda of sharing everything with everybody, that is exactly can be pushed down the throat once we have a society in disarray, an uncontrolled society, right? So now beyond this, we have another part, that why they do this. This is because they have another part, where they think that this aligning to the Soviet theory of the Soviet communism theory of what you call theory of glass water, that a water in the glass does not belong to anybody. It can be to, and it belongs to any person who wants to drink it. And now they applied that concept to their wives, their money, their houses, their food, their belongings, their properties. And reason was, they said that because pursuing all these things is a waste of time. It distracts us from pursuing our ultimate goal of socialist and communist setup. Now, all these things are exactly what are coming through this media, these media outlets, in the name of the new world order. Now, when you talk about the new world order, it might be very clear that the kind of agenda they want to implement is same. The template is same. As first of all, put this society in disarray by creating a non-stop wheeling of the information, which is actually disinformation, and then create a kind of narrative, convince the masses, and then destroy every possible institution which is existing in the society, traditional society, then create a kind of social unrest, and then control it, and with the control, drive them the way you want to drive them. Now, this entire summary which I gave, this is exactly this leftist controlled media or neoliberal controlled media is driving through. You take it, some anti-India debates, you take some anti-Hindutva debates, you talk about all the materials, articles published in the Western media against India or Hindutva ideology. So it is not about India or Hindutva ideology. Every nationalist leader or every nationalist government, they are actually against them, because they are kind of roadblocks towards their ultimate pursuit of that agenda of new world order. So every single media outlet we find, every single newspaper or online news portal or media channel, news channel, TV channel, whatever they are, whatever we find peddling these things, they are nothing. They are but small spokes into that push towards what you call this communist, socialist, or neo-socialist or neoliberal agenda or goal of 2030 new world order. Now, this concept was pioneered by George Soros in 1990 when he published an article New World Order, and it was nothing but based on his leanings towards that leftist ideology and leftist neoliberal ideology. So he kind of created a construct through that article, which is still there and on Open Society Foundation archives. You can find it, or if somebody needs, you can just go to my Twitter handle. It's there on my TL. So now, coming back to the BBC, when we talk about the BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, so lately they have been publishing lot many things about India, and some lot many anti-Hindutva, anti-Indian narratives, and plus they have been protesting that they are not social media, they are not a media house or newspaper or whatever they call themselves. They are not government funded, but that's not at all true. And today we will try to show mirror to BBC, and we'll see that how deep that muck is, and how deep-rooted, biased leftist bastion it is, which has always been, despite their tall claims that we are unbiased, secular, and a democratic news outlet or channel or media house or whatever. So, Mahesh, now we have BBC on the plate. Shall we have the lunch?
Yes, and the lunch would be that, probably our audience would very much like to know as to why is it that they don't do to, let's say, other societies, something like to Scotland or to Ireland. For example, जो कुछ प्रोटेस्ट चल रहा था, आर्म कॉन्फ्लिक्ट जब चल रहा था नॉर्दर्न आयरलैंड में, तो दैट वाज नॉट डिस्क्राइब्ड इन द सेम वे as they, for example, described the movements, something like whatever was happening in the name of Khalistan in Punjab, in 80s or even now. They will not describe the same, let's say, the struggle which is going on in Baluchistan.
See, the point is that whenever a particular geography or political setup is targeted by the media, so what happen is that there is a very clear-cut agenda. One, to undermine the existing political setup of that geography. Two, how do undermine that? By undermining the very cultural beliefs and values of that society. And three, you kind of support the anti-establishment agendas and narratives by supporting and publishing and justifying small incidents, maybe criminal, some religious hatred incidents, or some social conflicts, or writing some very negative things about some traditional values, ethos, or some traditional what you can say practices of the society, of a religion. And then in a way the ultimate aim is, by peddling that information, what you do is that you institutionalize these problems at global order through United Nations Human Rights Commission, through Human Rights Watch, through Minority Commission reports, through so many blah 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 surveys which have zero statistical significance because of the kind of sampling and the methodology they apply. And then through United Nations or through United Nations security resolutions, and through every possible global order and geopolitical institution. Now though that particular country or that political setup will be castigated and dubbed as some anti-human right, some anti-democratic setup, some threat to global security. And the backside, all the local elements, they are funded, they are fueled to the hilt just to drive this narrative of disinformation among the masses and to change the regime to a suitable regime which could allow the fleecing of that particular geography economically and commercially, trade wise, politically, and which could be like an open shop to be looted by all those big five powers of the Western world. That is how they drive it. So they choose India because India is being led by, I think, best prime minister we ever had, and they are finding India and India's growth and the leadership of India as a political and geopolitical roadblock towards their ultimate agendas. And secondly, to they are more worried about the growth of India because it would change the geopolitical map. It is already changing. And secondly, uh, they want that India should be used as a lever to counter China. But once India reaches the status of superpower, it will be impossible to use India as a lever against China, because China would never want a war. Even now, China would never want a war with India because it will be catastrophic for both the countries, right?
That's
So
true.
no
That's
matter
true.
how nationalistic sentiments we have, but we know that a war between India and China right now, it will be absolutely catastrophic for both the countries, and it will push back the economies of the both the countries by some what you say. Uh, some I can say that it will push us back by at least 25 to 30 years. That is
ये
how
बात सही है.
catastrophic it would be, right?
या बिल्कुल
So
ठीक बात है. बट मेरे,
when
हाँ,
you drive an
मेरे,
agenda, actually they mark a country, they mark a political leadership, they mark a society, and then slowly, they start creating a kind of mass of that society which is aligned to them basis the kind of information they feed and money they are paid to drive that disinformation. So that is how they are doing it. So Balochistan is just nothing. It is just a small dot in the geographical map for them, and it is of no use because Chinese are well addressed there, right? So they know that they cannot enter China simply, so they cannot do anything in the Balochistan also, right? And for Pakistan, Pakistan is just like a surgical glove. Whenever you want to operate any geographical geopolitical setup, you use surgical glove like Pakistan, then remove it once the work is done, dispose it,
But
that's it.
Ajay,
So
I have a question there. You know, what you are telling right now, this can very well be related जो अभी चल रहा है. You know, the current scenario is very much what you're saying. But
hmm,
this interference or this kind of a misreporting by BBC has been going on for decades. For example, in 80s,
yeah,
the Balochistan movement was also existing, so, and India was not a financial leader, but their reporting was the same about India, wasn't it?
yeah. See, the point is that this oriental hegemony that has been a very favorite agenda of the whites, so they have never been out of their colonial mindset. So in a way, right from the days of the Winston Churchill and right from the days of Carter's, Nixon's, and Kennedy's, they have been always been very eager to capture the oriental east of the world just to counter the Russia and just to counter the check of the communist regime of the Russia. So that's why what they did was that they wanted the entire Oriental East shall be dependent upon them economically, politically, and for security also, so that they could just walk into any country like they are just roaming in their own drawing room. So that is why to push this to push this agenda, it was very much important and it was imperative for them that they need to have a kind of access, they need to have a kind of uh, open access to that society where they could just push their own economic and military hegemonies, and they can just fleece the country's economic and political systems for their own benefits. So that is exactly what they wanted, and that is what is the what can you say surmise or the base of their entire approach. And one more thing is that this interventionist approach which USA championed to this Monroe policy of their foreign diplomacy, that
Yeah.
has been coined for Latin America, but now they have expanded to every nook and corner of the globe, right? And this is a big problem for the this was a big problem for the global order, and now US is getting it back. Thankfully they shall get it back. So now coming back to the BBC. So BBC has a history of parodying the colonial mindset rhetoric to just subjugate and create a kind of subversion for all the oriental what you could say religions, oriental political setups, and oriental culture in totality, because they thought that we have ruled them and we have given so many good things to them, and they would always remain inferior to us. Even till date, most of the intellectuals, their literary icons, or their writing community, their media community, and most of their elitist social community, they always carry this what you call uh, neo-colonial or colonial mindset, and they always looked upon towards the oriental cultures and languages and religions. The one of the finest example of this is that last year there was an inquiry that for the trips of the British parliaments and British Senate committee members. So it was found that whenever they would visit West Asian countries, they would just behave like some Hollywood superstars. They will demand everything, right from alcohol to call girls to five-star hotel stays, free foods, free travels, and everything. in the name of British government.
Mm-hmm.
That report was just pushed out and pushed away and swept under the carpet, but it was very explosive. So I just read about it, and then I wrote a thread about it also. And what I found was that it was nothing, but they felt so much of entitlement just because they were British, that they would behave like that as if Tom Cruise is landing in Indonesia or Cambodia or Thailand. So that is the kind of mindset they carry on, right? So you can guess from there that media house, which is legacy of their traditional media, funded by their local taxpayers, how would that behave? That will be exactly following their psychological, social psychological template. Simple. So if we see that they are peddling some stupid things about our Indian culture or our Hindutva culture or Mr. Modi or BJP or any political setup we have in India, they take it as their birthright, to be very honest. They just don't even flinch an eye before writing anything in the name of British superiority and in the name of media activism, to highlight that human right violations are being done, and to highlight that so many classes and minorities are being subjugated and deprived of their basic rights. So that kind of stupidity that reeks out of every single line they write. You can see it very
That's right.
clearly.
या इनफैक्ट एक चीज़ जो यहाँ पे नहीं भूलनी चाहिए वो ये भी है कि ऐसा नहीं है कि ये सिर्फ मोदी जी की ही क्रिटिसिज्म हो रही है। इन लोगों ने ये क्रिटिसिज्म 80 के दशक में भी की थी, उस समय पर जब इंदिरा गांधी का राज था, और 75 का जो वक्त था उस समय पे इनको एक बार इंदिरा गांधी ने इंडिया से बाहर भी निकाल दिया था। और द सेम
See,
हैपेंड अगेन लेटर ऑन, जब इमरजेंसी आई थी तब दोबारा इनको निकाला गया था इंडिया से। सो मच सो कि मार्कटली जो इनके कॉरेस्पोंडेंट थे दिल्ली में, उनको 24 आवर्स का नोटिस मिला था कि विद इन 24 आवर्स उनको इंडिया छोड़ना था। तो दैट इज हाउ हार्शली कांग्रेस केम एक्चुअली, यू नो, Indira Gandhi is kind of our top names there, and she was the one who basically initiated this expulsion of BBC, not once but twice during her regime, last regimes. So that is also another thing that is, it's not just Modi ji's criticism, but it's just that they have been critical of India probably all the time. Ajay, are you there, Ajay? So, Ajay, I'll share the handle with you, not a problem. In fact, if you go into my timeline, you'll find it there. I think there is some internet problem, so he's getting disconnected. He'll come back. So we'll have to wait a little. But मैं आपको ये बताऊं श्रोताओं, दर्शकों, कि ये जो सिलसिला है ये बहुत पुराना है, उस तब से कि जब इंदिरा गांधी ने इनको 2 बार निकाला था, यही मिस रिपोर्टिंग के कारण 75, 77, एंड देन उसके बाद भी आप ये देखिए कि अब ये जो चल रहा है टैक्सेशन के इवेजन के लिए जो बात आई है, आप ये देखिए इनके पास जो नोटिसेस थे इनकम टैक्स के, वो साल पहले से पड़े हुए थे और उनको उन्होंने रिप्लाई बैक नहीं किया था। और अब वो जब उनको इसके लिए काउंटर किया गया है, तब वो ये कहकर अपने आप को पल्ला झाड़ रहे हैं कि ये पॉलिटिकल वेंडेटा है जिसमें ये गवर्नमेंट हमारे ऊपर आ रही है, और हम बेसिकली पॉलिटिकल वेंडेटा के तहत हमको हमारे पीछे पड़ रही है, विच इज नॉट ट्रू। आई मीन दे सिंपली कुड नॉट फर्निश द डॉक्यूमेंट्स, एंड अगर ऐसा नहीं होता तो आखिरकार उनको ये क्यों कहना पड़ा कि नहीं, विल सबमिट टू द गवर्नमेंट पॉलिसी, एंड जो भी उनकी जरूरत है हम वो सारा पूरा करेंगे। तो ये कहने की नौबत आपको इसीलिए आती है ना, बाय द वे, अगर इसके मायने ये कतई नहीं है कि इंडिया में जो फॉरेन इन्वेस्टमेंट का जो सिलसिला है उसके लिए कहीं से कुछ नुकसानदायक है या ऐसा कुछ, सिंपली बिकॉज आप ये देखिए कि इससे पहले जो वोडाफोन वाला केस हुआ था, तो आप ये देखिए कि वहां पर जो फैसला आया था सुप्रीम कोर्ट से, वो वोडाफोन के फेवर में गया था। नतीजा ये कि जो आपके यहाँ आने वाली फॉरेन फंडिंग है, आप ये देखिए, और उसने इतना गुडविल क्रिएट किया इंडिया के लिए और इंडिया में एफडीआई के लिए कि आज जो आप देखते हैं कि बहुत सारी कंपनियां चाइना से निकलकर और यहाँ आ रही हैं, उसके पीछे एक बड़ा रीज़न भी ये है, क्योंकि ये तमाम लोग, ये जो उस समय जो वोडाफोन की लिमिट है, उसमें ये मैसेज अक्रॉस ये गया कि भाई अगर इवन इंडिया की गवर्नमेंट भी किसी फॉरेन इन्वेस्टर के अगेंस्ट कुछ गलत करना चाहे, तो यहाँ पर एक जस्टिस सिस्टम मौजूद है जो आपको बचा लेगा। एंड दैट इज व्हाट हैपेंड टू वोडाफोन। एंड नतीजा ये है कि आज आप देख रहे हैं, जो लाइनअप आप देखते हैं लगातार आता हुआ कि लोग आंख मूंद के इंडिया में इन्वेस्टमेंट के लिए चल देते हैं, उसके पीछे बेसिक रीजन ये है बिकॉज दे फील श्योर एंड दे फील सिक्योर कि एक सिस्टम है जहां पर डेमोक्रेसी है, नंबर एक। दो, कि आप अपने ढंग से अपना काम कर सकते हैं, सेटअप कर सकते हैं, हर किस्म का क्लाइंटेल मौजूद है, और सबसे बड़ी बात कि आपके इंटरेस्ट को प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए, लीगल राइट्स को प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए एक जुडिशियल सिस्टम है जो आपको कहीं ना कहीं इन सारी मुश्किलों से बचाता है। तो गुड फॉर इंडिया, गुड फॉर व्हाट इज आई थिंक हमारे दोस्त जे अभी कुछ कह रहे हैं। Indira Gandhi was the only man. Remember that line? I think Khushwant Singh, right? Could be. I actually don't remember that line, but I remember, I used to be in school and Delhi में एक होते थे वो टंटा साहब हुआ करते थे, and he used to say कि India is Indira, Indira is India वाला जो scene. Ajay is back and here he is. So हाँ अजय, आप आपका डिस्कनेक्ट कनेक्शन कट गया था।
Yeah, so there was some issue with the connectivity. My apologies for that.
Go ahead. तो ये था, तो हम लोग बेसिकली बात कर रहे थे इंदिरा गांधी के बारे में कि कैसे उन्होंने बीबीसी को 2 बार यहाँ से निकाला था, और इनकी एंटी इंडिया रिपोर्टिंग को लेकर। हालांकि मार्क टली को यहाँ पर ऑलमोस्ट हिंदुस्तानी माना जाता रहा है। मार्क टली वाज बहुत हाथों हाथ लिया जाता था उनको। तो ये भी सिलसिला यहाँ पर चला है। और देखते हैं कि बट हाउ डू यू लुक एट इट, इसका जो जिस किस्म की ये एटीट्यूड है बीबीसी का, अजय आपको क्या लगता है इसका एंटीडोट क्या हो सकता है? भारत को इस पर कैसे रिएक्ट करना चाहिए, कैसे काउंटर करना चाहिए इस किस्म के नैरेटिव बिल्डिंग को जो इस किस्म के एलिमेंट करते हैं?
See, lately, couple of Indian digital ecosystem players, they, along with the Ministry of IT and Information, they have been collaborating to create a kind of fact-checking collaboration or ecosystem, where whatever news we get, or whatever what you say information which is coming through the media, they would actually fact check it, and they will officially denounce if there is kind of subversive campaign, or there's a kind of disinformation campaign which is going on, and then they would always put up these information based fact checking campaigns with the help of Government of India in public domain, to ensure that right kind of social narratives and public and political and policy related narratives are driven for the benefit of the country. So that antidote is in work. So that Ministry of IT is working on it, and I'm pretty sure that by the end of this year it would come up.
All right, okay. So मुझे लगता है कि we covered most of the area that we had to in this, and so we would rather how would you like to conclude it? I mean, if you had to sum up the whole thing in a couple of minutes, how would you like to conclude it?
So now let me update. See, when we talk about BBC, so first of all, they say that they are not government funded, and I actually denounce it, because as per the there is a act in the which was formed way back, which ensured that British Broadcasting Corporation is being funded by the government grants, which are nothing but UK taxpayers' money. So they cannot say that they are not government funded media. They are, in fact, they are very much government funded media, right? And secondly, when we look at their management, right, and look at their history, we found that this British Broadcasting Corporation has been in hand in glove with the MI5, that is the British intelligence community, to identify and profile and create the biographies of the people, their own citizens, and in a way they helped in 90s, 70s, and 80s to spy on their own people. So if they say
Okay.
that they are neutral, they are unbiased, they are not. They are more like a corrupt leftist bastion who at one point of time was hand in glove in the and one of the very important part of the this cauldrons of the Cold War, and they were actually a part of this Cold War ecosystem of the West. But once in 1990 late 90s, this information exploded, and actually in BBC literally imploded, and then they just washed their hand down from this um, creating spying and biographic creation of their own citizens, just because they were doubting that they might be some Russian spies or some communist agenda peddlers, or they might be some uh, subversive activity, carrying activists on the at the behest of the communist regimes of the Europe and Russia. So that is how they were doing. They had a full-fledged vetting unit to check the credentials and biographies of the people who were doubted to have communist leanings, or who were doubted to have Chinese or Russian connections. And now they are saying that no, they are an independent media house. They are not. They are very much controlled by the British government, and they are very much funded by the British government, right? And now, coming to the deeds of BBC. So let's start with the Leipzig incidents. In March 2015, media reports started campaign where there was a issue in Germany when a Indian student applied for a scholarship, and the reply came was that Indian guest trainees and doctoral students cannot apply because of the rape problem in India. And BBC published a full-fledged 3-page dossier on this, that these many rapes are happening in India, these many heinous rapists going unpunished, minorities are being raped, this, that. It was like that they literally declared India rape capital. But when government of India protested, government of India summoned then German ambassador also. So then Leipzig University apologized. They removed that particular clause of the admission criteria on their website, and BBC also shut down this rhetoric. But then BBC went all out to just to ensure that entire world takes India as a rape capital. Second, BBC published some very long articles on the concept of female empowerment and our cultural leanings towards, and dubbed China and India as the capitals of female infanticide, right? And that's true, by parodying that female infanticide has been a problem for centuries, partly as a result of patriarchal nature of Indian society.
Yeah.
So that's how they have been destroying it. And they simply said that another thing, how they just subjugate or create kind of subvert a particular religion and ensure that their political agenda remains intact. So what they say about Islam is that Islam has always been condemning infanticide, and female infanticide was common in pre-Islamic Arabia. However, by the time of Muhammad and the revelation of the Quran, female infanticide was strictly forbidden and regarded seriously as a adult murder. So you understand, a Vedic society full of so many female goddesses and deities and rishikas,
Yeah.
that is being castigated by the so-called British corporation, by broadcasting
Yeah.
corporation, as a society which is responsible for the genesis of female infanticide, and Islamic traditions of all the deeds. I don't want to go into them for the sake
Yeah.
of avoiding the controversy,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
all the Islamic traditions and deeds, they were exonerated with the just one small paragraph at the bottom of that dossier,
Yeah.
right?
Footnote.
Now, now now I will just go by the name of the BBC reporters and just highlight that how they have been driving this agenda. Now, Imran Qureshi from BBC Hindi gave a long wailing detail about the subjugation of converted Christians by Hindu political outfits. Now I have a question.
Hmm.
There have been a full-blown conversion campaign, especially in South India and tribal India's hinterlands of eastern part or the central part of India, peddled by the
Hmm.
Western NGOs and the Vatican
Hmm.
itself, right? And to
Hmm.
be very honest, that our Indian National Congress Party's the Harta Karta Dharta madam, she
Hmm.
had so many meetings with the Vatican representatives and the Western representatives, including the father-in-law of that leftist historian Audrey Trotsky, right? So
Oh, yeah. The one
they
writes on
were
Aurangzeb.
all,
Yeah.
yes, that father-in-law of Adrian Trotsky was just, Audrey Trotsky was just heading an NGO, a big NGO, which was funding millions and millions of dollars into the this conversion ecosystem of India. So now, if they say that these converted Christians are being castigated by the Hindu political setup, one thing, Hindu political setup, there is no Hindu political setup. Bharatiya Janata Party supports Hindutva, but
Yeah.
Hindu, being Hindu or Hindutva is not a proprietary right of anyone. I am a Hindu. I am as much a Hindu as Mr. Modi is a Hindu. I am as much a Hindu as you are a Hindu. I do support Mr. Modi and Bharatiya Janata Party because I have been working with them since 1997, since my college days as a Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad activist,
Hmm.
right? But that doesn't mean that Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad or Bharatiya Janata Party has a proprietary right of Hindutva. There are so many people, so many ecosystems in this country which support Sanatan culture and Hindutva. Bharatiya Janata Party is one of the biggest and most potent uh, set of such ecosystem, which is capable of having political and legislature power to protect us, to protect our culture, right? So now, if they say that converted Christians being castigated, they shall, this Mr. Qureshi, Imran Qureshi, shall go to Tamil Nadu and see that how temple land is being gifted to the Waqf board, how in Kerala Hindus are not allowed to celebrate the festivals, how stone pelting happens on our festivals in rest of the parts of India by the so-called other com, and how in Andhra Pradesh its chief minister, being a Christian, has gifted thousands and thousands of acres of land to the Christian missionaries and the churches in the name of religious appeasement. So,
Hmm.
Mr. Imran Qureshi, you shall also talk about that. No? Now,
बिल्कुल.
second part.
Hmm.
BBC Tamil's K. Sabugam contacted Sadhguru's team for an interview about his Save Soil movement. But
Hmm.
BBC person switched to an Isha Foundation has encroached upon forest land and made environmental violation kind of propaganda.
Hmm.
Because the idea is that they want to castigate and subvert and black paint every single institution icon which is there to support, protect, and propagate Hindutva. And that is what they do, and that is what Western lobbies and Western left neoliberals are asking them to do through their NGOs, through their so-called leftist and activists, through their medias, and BBC is one of their most potent hands. So BBC is also bidding the call. Now coming to the Geeta Pandey, which let in her latest tweet supported Atiq Ahmed as some what is a Robin Hood. Now,
Yeah.
back in days, Geeta Pandey wrote that unprovoked attacks on Muslims by Hindu mobs have become routine in India, but they seem to invoke
Yeah.
little condemnation from the government. Now, I want to ask Miss Geeta Pandey that when 59 sadhus, car sevaks were literally burnt, roasted
Burnt
in
alive.
Godhra,
Yeah. Yeah.
Rana Yubes, and those so many. kurta
They were
pajama,
silent.
sherwani, matlab arfa
Yeah,
sherwani type people. They wrote
mm,
reams and reams of the volumes on that. But
yeah,
based on the funding they received from outside to peddle an anti-Modi agenda, to peddle an
mm,
anti-Hindutva agenda, because somewhere the present Indian National Congress government leadership, they were hand in glove with such elements, and they just wanted to destroy Mr. Modi, his political legacy, and also they wanted to ensure that the rise of Hindutva shall be checkmated to keep on their political shop open. Now,
right.
if we see that how they castigate Hindu version of the truth is, you can understand by this that mm, JNU and its activists, they are being peddled as revolutionaries. And one of the JNU activists' father, Jishan Muhammad, he was uh, arrested by the UP police, and he was dubbed as a human rights activist while he was an arsonist who literally tore the entire Pragraj during the CCA protest. Now,
Mm,
coming to another BBC gentleman, Sautik Biswas. Now he writes that religious life of India, key findings. 64% Hindus say that it is very important to be Hindu to be truly Indian. Roughly two-thirds of Hindus want to prevent interfaith marriage of Hindu women or men. Even larger share of Muslims feel similarly. 36% Hindus do not want a Muslim neighbor. I don't know where this Sautik Biswas, who's based in Delhi, found this kind of statistics among the 1.5 billion Indians. And this is a disgusting narrative of castigating the religious harmony which exists because Hindus are 80% in this country. Otherwise, Mr. Sautik Biswas, if you go to any Islamic country, once Islam comes in the majority, minorities are wiped out, my friend. There is no
absolutely.
minority in any of the Muslim countries. There is a Sharia law, there is no democracy, and only one thing you find is a Muslim society. Ultimate aim is for all those Muslim countries, Muslim majority countries, is that who want only one thing: 100% of the society to be Muslim and following the Holy Quran and Sharia. That's it. So, Mr. Sautik Biswas, if you have some other ideas, please come on the debate with us. We'll show you some hard facts, some real facts based on our real life experience in our culture and being an Indian, some truthful facts. So, I have a simple request to you, Sautik. Just don't peddle these half-baked data and statistics because they land nowhere. Now, mocking our sacred texts and portraying Hinduism has been a favorite topic of your British Broadcasting Corporation, and they wrote a Ramayana also. They said that Ramayana is a more like a kind of ideology peddling literature work, which is forcing Hindus to become militant and pick up the weapons to indulge in violence to ensure the Hindutva supremacy. Now, here I have a question with the BBC that when Ramayana was written in your native land, there are only animals and some hunter
Yeah,
gatherer tribes.
yeah,
They didn't even have a shanty of a house to live by.
yeah,
And that literature, Vedic literature you are talking about, you are castigating, that is the greatest literary work in the history of the mankind. So if you say that it is encouraging Hindus to be militant and to create a kind of social narrative of militant religious practices, I'm sorry to say that. Our religion always say that in one hand you have Shastra and in other hand you have Shastra.
sister, yeah,
Shastra to develop the society and Shastra to protect the society. And my friend,
right.
we will never
Bilkul.
give up this right. Be very sure of that. We will always be like that, whether you like it or not. But if you say that we are just exterminating minorities, no. Minorities exist in this country, as I said earlier, because this country is inhabited by 80% of the Hindus. The day there will be no Hindu in a particular geography, there will be no minorities. There will be only one thing, that is your dream, that is your wet dream, that a Muslim majority area. That is what even West Bengal Chief Minister Mamta Banerjee or Mamta Bano is also keep orchestrating and keep harping that these are Muslim areas. But these are the wet dreams of these anti-India elements. Now coming to next point, when last year this Leicester violence happened in UK. So
Yeah.
what BBC did was that BBC, in a very smart way, tried to play neutral by mocking the Hindu community and their customs, and just dub them as the main catalyst of enticing the Muslims and raking up the riots. And then another article which was written by BBC was that Jai Shri Ram, the much revered recitation of our Hindu culture, Sanatan culture, is a war cry. Okay? And they literally mock the millions of Hindus. And in addition to mocking the Middle Age Gauri practices of rather than mocking the Middle Age practices of Islam, they glorified the Middle Age practices of Islam, and by publishing the kind of articles like the woman who sleep with stranger to save their marriage. That was their Oxford Shakespearean version of halala. So I think
Hmm.
I just want to ask the couple of these BBC guys: would you let your wife or sister sleep with the rest of your family member just to verify her chastity and her character? If you say
एक्चुअली
that
अजय,
yes,
यू नो,
you agree
ये
to this,
आपने जो,
I would like to
हाँ,
see your face.
जो आपने जो एग्जांपल दिया लाइप्सिग यूनिवर्सिटी का, जर्मनी से, वो हम लोग उसको लाइप्सिग बोलते हैं वहाँ पे। एंड आपको मैं बताऊँ, वन ऑफ द रीजंस कुड बी, आई एम नॉट श्योर, इज दैट यू नो आई हैव बीन देयर फॉर सम टाइम इन लाइप्सिग, यू नो, फॉर मल्टीपल रीजंस, आई स्पेंड लॉट ऑफ टाइम देयर। एंड उस यूनिवर्सिटी में प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि चूंकि वो ईस्टर्न पार्ट ऑफ जर्मनी में है, तो यहाँ पर इंडोलॉजी का एक सेक्शन है लाइप्जिग यूनिवर्सिटी में। इंडोलॉजी के इस सेक्शन में कुछ लोग ऐसे रहे हैं जो कभी इंडिया आए ही नहीं, और उनके जो ट्रांसलेशन उन्होंने किए हैं इंडियन टेक्स्ट के वहाँ पर, वो इतने खराब रहे हैं सिंपली बिकॉज दे हैड नो डायरेक्ट एक्सेस टू इंडिया और मनी टू स्पेंड टाइम इन इंडिया, बिकॉज आपको स्कॉलरशिप लंबी लंबी तो दी नहीं जा सकती थी वहाँ से। ईस्टर्न जर्मनी में आपको मालूम है कि होनेकर वाला टाइम था, तो क्या क्या कुछ होता था। तो ये फॉर एग्जांपल वहाँ पे एक ट्रांसलेटर थी मार्गोट गत्सलाफ, तो जो कि वहाँ प्रोफेसर थी लाइप्जिग यूनिवर्सिटी में, और उन्हीं के टाइम पर उन्होंने प्रेमचंद का गोदान फॉर एग्जांपल जर्मन में ट्रांसलेट किया था उस ज़माने में। और फिर एक और लेडी है वहाँ पर, इरा शर्मा, डॉक्टर इरा शर्मा। अब वो इरा शर्मा डॉक्टर बाद में बनी
Yeah.
है, उससे पहले वो स्टाइपेंड वगैरह करने के लिए और कुछ रिसर्च करने के लिए इंडिया आई हुई थी, दिल्ली में रही थी, मैं उनको पर्सनली जानता हूँ। वी हैव स्पेंड सम गुड बिट ऑफ टाइम टुगेदर। और आप ये देखिए कि जब मैं लाइप्जिग में इन लोगों के साथ था, व्हाट आई नोटिस्ड वाज कि देयर वाज सडनली अ न्यूज़, एंड वो ज़माना ये था कि जब जर्मनी में इस तरह की खबरें ना इंडिया के बारे में खबरें आती थी तो ऐसी ही आती थी, यू नो, सांप आ गया या कुछ आ गया। तो फॉर एग्जांपल वहाँ पे कोई खबर ऐसी आ गई कि किसी गांव में किसी ने स्वयंवर से शादी की है, and it was highlighted in the
Hmm.
university, you know, for whatever reasons. And when I protested that, you know, you're talking about this, but at this point of time when you're reading this news, India is also building satellites, so why are we not talking about those satellites, and why are we talking about this one-off incident? And but they found it very romantic, you know, they found it very a romantic idea, you know, of orientalism ka ki, you know, you have somebody marrying by a swayamvar, this is it. But then, you know, times change, तो मुझे लगता है कि ये इस यूनिवर्सिटी में मुझे प्रॉब्लम हमेशा रही है, because I thought these people are not much traveled, they remain there for a very long time, and the study of India is Germany based. Most of them stay in Germany and study India. That's one of the problems why, you know, because they know
Yeah,
India through media.
agreed. So you can see, right, that by right from dubbing that 2020 this 26/11 attacks terrorists as gunmen, to mocking our institutes of Ramayana as some militant document, then dubbing this our revered chant of Jai Shri Ram as some war cry,
War
by
cry.
glorifying the halala practices of Islam, or by dubbing the Hinduism as the origin of female infanticide, to castigating and subverting our present political system, and targeting our icons, and targeting our cultures, our religious symbols, and India as a country. BBC has been always a bastion, a left bastion, a leftist bastion, full of people with neo-colonial mentality and hatred towards India. So that is what BBC is. So I think if we start writing more about their dates, we can literally write a book on them
Yeah,
and their
right.
anti-India propaganda. But
Yeah,
I have just tried to compile some of the main major stupid absurdities they tried to heap on India, and I think um, this would be good enough to show them some mirror with
yeah,
some slapstick answers to them. And if the
yeah.
kind of journalists they have in India, and some of them I actually named in this dialogue, if any
Yeah,
of them have any issue, they are most welcome to come on the debate. We would show them the
sure.
mirror, we'll show them the real fact and the truth of our country and our
Yeah,
culture and our icons. So we would see.
yeah. I think with that we should now finish it there because that's an ideal time. You've explained it pretty well. So thank
Yeah,
you very much, Ajay, for coming in and talking about this because this was need of the time. It was really needed at this moment. So thank you very much for that, and thank you very much, viewers, for being there. And let's keep in touch, and we'll continue our discussions in the episode.
sure,
Uh,
Mehji. Thank you so much for having me, and all the audience, all the people who are participating is Radhe Radhe. Keep believing in Hindutva, and keep believing in your country and our beautiful culture, and its traditions, and our Vedic literature, because we
Absolutely.
are blessed to have these things and to be born in the land of these symbols, these Vedic culture, scriptures, and to be born in India is a blessing, culturally,
Oh,
politically
yes,
also, and in every
absolutely.
possible way. So
It
thank
is
you
a
so much,
blessing.
and Radhe Radhe.
Yes, and soon, viewers, our friend Ajay will also start a series on Indian mythology, especially the Vedic culture of India. So you'll be
Yeah,
part of that. You'll be seeing that very soon. So thank you very much
definitely,
for now,
definitely.
and bye bye.
Thank you, Radhe Radhe.